Hello there. Let's take a look at the law of sine. And you can see at the top here, I have two variations on the law of sine. You can have the angle on top or the side on top. And it just depends on how you want to do the algebra, whether you want to memorize it one way or the other. And when you go to solve this, you're going to be given three parts, and they're going to go in a pair of these fractions. So when we get to the law of cosine, that's one of the ways you can tell if you plug in to the pieces. If you use all three of the fractions, then you can't use the law of sine because you won't be able to solve for anything. So there you go. So let's look at this solve your triangle here. And we're given two angle measures and one of the sides that corresponds with one of the angles. That's always a clue about you're going to need the law of sines to be able to do that. But because we're given both angles to begin with, we can solve for the third angle, you see, just by subtracting from 180 degrees. Pretty easy to get that answer. And then we need the other two sides, so side A and side C. And it doesn't make any difference what order you answer these in. But side A, you can see what I was talking about. We've got two pair of those fractions, and we fill in three of the missing pieces, and only one thing is left over. And you can see immediately to the right, if you're solving for a side, and you use one of these fractions, the form at the bottom, or if you're solving for an angle and you use one of these at the top, there's a little bit less algebra to do. So if you do it with, you solve for something in the top part of the fraction, you can see my step on the right is just to multiply what was in the denominator below that missing variable right there. So, and then I just type it in the calculator. Easy peasy. The second one I'm solving for side C, and you can see I just wrote it with that algebra step already done. Now be careful with how you type it in the calculator. You can group these things different ways. So you could go sine 49.36 degrees times 38.84 and then divided by the other sign. You could go sine of this one divided by sine of that one, and then multiply the 38.84. There's lots of ways. Just get comfortable and just be careful with the parentheses and how you type it in the calculator. It's really easy to make a mistake and not know you made a mistake. So practice. Alrighty. So one of the things about the law of sine is that occasionally you have some ambiguity where, depending on the three pieces that you're given, they may not solve a triangle at all, or there could be two triangles. Now, when you have two angles like this one, there's only going to be one triangle. So there's no ambiguity here. But the next few examples are going to take you through some of this. So let's look at this one. One angle, the side opposite the angle, and another side. So we're going to have to use the law of sine to solve for angle B first. That is the clue. Pay attention. Maybe there's two triangles that will satisfy these three things. Maybe there's none. Maybe there's only one. And I'll show you all three examples so you know what to look for. Okay, so here is set up for solving sine B. And you can see I did a little bit of the algebra, and then I just go straight to type it in the calculator, and I get the 31.3977 degrees. Automatically assume maybe there's a second one. That is key. If you always think maybe there's a second one. So let's go back and look at the first example. So we used the law of sines here, but we used it in step 2 to solve for the side. When we solved for this first angle, we subtracted from 180. One triangle every time, no matter what. Here, we're given one angle, and we have to solve for the another angle using the law of sines in the very first thing that we do. That is the clue. Maybe there's two, maybe there's none. Once you figure out that first solution, just by normally solving it, automatically do the second one you see over here on the right, subtract from 180. Now when you get to the third angle in the second solution, and I'll show you this, it will either work positive 8.3977 or it'll be negative, and then you know there's 1 or 2. So you found the second angle. We're subtracting from 180 to get the third angle for both of the possible solutions for 2 different triangles. And then the last thing we do is solve for the final side for both of those possible triangles, like that. All right, next example, we're given an angle. We've got the side opposite the angle and one of the other sides. The letters don't really matter. I used A and B on this example, and now I'm using A and C. But that combination angle side opposite is key for the law of sine. Okay, so we're going to have to solve for angle C. Same thing. I dive right in. Now you can see, I'm going to scroll down. If you solve for sine C and type that in the calculator, the answer is larger than 1. And we talked about that with the graphing and the unit circle. Sine or cosine can only be between -1 and +1. It cannot be outside those bounds. So, or if you use the inverse button, you'll get a domain error. Now, provided you typed it correctly in the calculator. So be careful. You might make a mistake and get an error and think no solution when there is. So you have to be careful with your typing. So again, both of these, I just dove in and solved for that first angle. The first time it worked, I thought to myself, oh, there could be a second triangle. Let me find that other angle. Subtract from 180. Both of these solutions worked out. But here, before I could even solve for the angle, it doesn't work. No solution. Alrighty. Next example, and you can probably guess what it will be. That's a 34 degrees there. Sorry, my degree symbol got a little bit big. So we're given an angle, side opposite, and another side. Dive right into solving. We got B1, 26.5741. We got B2, 153. Now you could stop there and go 153 and the original angle 34 degrees is bigger than 180. Can't be a triangle. Or if you solve for the third angle, you'll get a negative. That tells you there's no second triangle. So let's recap. Law of sine, 4 possibilities. You start with 2 of the angles. There always is a triangle solution. You start with a single angle, a side opposite, and one of the other sides. That's the ambiguous case. So solve for the angle that you have to solve for first. Assume there's a second one, and there'll either be a second one or that second possibility will not work and there's only one triangle. And then the no solution occurs with the first thing that you solve for does not work at all. And there's no possibility of any kind of triangle. That's the law of sine. There you go. And we've got a word problem. So we got 2 people. They're 20 miles apart. They're looking at an airplane that's in between them. So you do have to know whether the 2 things are on the same side or they're on opposite sides, like that. So the angle of elevation from one person looking up to the airplane, 80 degrees. The other one is 15 degrees. And then solve these things. I find it helpful to draw the diagrams and label the parts, label the things you're solving for. So, and you can use different letters. I used H for height. Doesn't make any difference. So part A, how far from the airplane is zombie A? So that's my X. And then the altitude, that's that vertical H, right yonder. So we've got 2 of the angles. We can find the third angle, the angle that the plane makes in the triangle, 85 degrees. Now that angle at the top, opposite the 20 miles at the bottom will allow us to use the 15 degrees and find the side opposite it, which is the x. Boop. Easy peasy. Plug it in, type it in the calculator, you got your answer. The height or altitude of the plane is SOHCAHTOA, right triangle, straight out of the Unit 1 stuff. We've got the 80 degrees is the opposite height over the hypotenuse x that we just solved for. Plug it in, a little bit of algebra, type in the calculator, boom, you're done. And we're done with the law of sines. Thank you for attending.